Welcome to another episode of the All Things Then podcast, and today we are looking into something super important, and it's the art of crafting a stellar CV, something that gets you jobs in those big companies that you've been applying to. Well, probably because you haven't been doing it the right way, which I'm going to show you today. So let's get to it. I know job hunting can be brutal. Have you ever wondered why you got a rejection despite being qualified for a job? It's heartbreaking, I know. I've had my fair share as well, right? But today we are here to help your game and to turn those rejections into offers. How does that sound to you? Right. And we all know that AI is shaking up recruitment in a big way, making it tougher to get jobs, to get noticed by companies. But don't worry, we've got you covered today. And today's episode is packed with tips to help you navigate this journey. Let's get started. Welcome back. Okay, so this episode is actually divided into 3 parts. On the first part, we'll look at the importance of crafting a good CV. Okay, your CV is your first impression, and we have to make that count. We'll obviously cover the do's and don'ts. We'll cover common mistakes to avoid and how to showcase yourself better. And then the part 2 of this episode is going to talk about the role of ATS. So ATS is automated tracking system. So it's used by companies to actually, sieve out CVs and, to pick qualified candidates and differentiate them from the disqualified candidates. And there's a particular way it works, and I'm going to walk you through how the system works, why companies use them, and how the ATS scans and processes your CV. And if you're watching on video, you obviously see images of how all of this work. I'm going to show you, so you have nothing to be worried about. So by having this knowledge, obviously, you will then know the cheat code on how to actually do it better and get better jobs. Is that okay? Okay, and the third part of this episode is going to be me creating a new CV with you. And we're going to do that together. Is that fine? So if we're all happy with our curriculum, let's get started, okay? Now, remember, All Things Then is here to help you become the best version of yourself. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, on Spotify, and other podcast platforms. That's actually how we can get more followers. So please click on the subscribe button right now, okay? Leave us a review, obviously, after listening to the episode. Don't just leave us hanging, okay? Leave a review so that other people can also find us. And follow us on Instagram. We post really nice stuff there that can really help you. Okay, so let's go to the main meat for today. Now, number 1, part 1, right? The importance of a well-crafted CV. Well, first impressions matter. Have you ever met someone where they have a great personality, but then you met them under a different circumstance and it didn't exactly portray them in a good light? Do you remember how lasting that impression was on your mind before you had to change that about them? That's what a CV is when you submit it. So when your employers receive, a CV, the first thing that comes to their mind is, oh, this is this person sitting before me, and I want to know who this person is. Okay? So, and you just have to put the best fit forward. So let's look at how do we then put this best fit forward. There are a few do's and don'ts that we need to take note of. Number 1, the CV is not exactly what's it called now? This is not a manifesto. So we are not exactly reading like a politician and we are like, oh, yeah. This is my profession. This is my marital status. Nah, we don't do that on the CV. Okay, we are more concise, we keep it relevant, and we highlight our key achievements. Also, take note not to overload it with unnecessary information or fluff. Okay, there are certain common mistakes that people actually make when submitting their CVs. Number 1, they don't check for typos or grammatical errors. What if I submit a CV to your company And instead of writing, I profiled some of our clients while I was working for ABC Electronics. And what I now wrote is actually, I proficiently profiter clients. And then you read down, you're like, profiter, what does that even mean? Like it raises a lot of questions in your mind. Okay, so what you want to give the employer is a seamless process of reading through the CV and understanding it and being very excited to want to recruit you. Okay, another thing to take note of as part of the importance of crafting a very good CV is actually you're meant to use very strong and action-oriented language to highlight your skills and experiences. Rather than saying, I completed the signing of 12 clients to our organization, you can just use the word completed signing of 12 clients to our organization. What you have done there is to take away the pronoun I, but that makes a huge difference, because what you want to show is that you have the ability to action the tasks that you're going to be given. So they need more action-oriented words like demonstrated, like recognized, like completed, like practiced, and a lot more. Okay, so you can just type on Google and you'll find a lot more. Okay, another thing is to take note of is structure and formatting. Ensure to keep your CV clean, organized, and easy to read with clear headings and bullet points. Now, I recently saw a CV of one of my friends, and this is not to throw a jab at my friend at all, but I just think that it's a good example I could give. It was so beautiful, well, very colorful, and when I saw it, I felt sort of, I don't know if to say overwhelmed, but I didn't feel like reading the CV because it just felt like it was too busy. It had a lot going on in it. It wasn't clear. Like the person used like very dark colors. And so even the fonts were not like very clear. I couldn't read them. They were very small and tiny fonts. And I wondered if this person submitted their CV to an employer. If I was already feeling that way, how would an employer feel? Do you get what I mean now? So it's very important to actually keep the structure and format very clean, clear and concise. Okay, so let's now look at some of the top tips for creating, wonderful CVs. Number one, when you receive a job description, the first thing you want to ensure is that everything you are curating on your CV is tailored towards getting that job. What's the point of actually writing out a CV when the job we're applying for is not exactly, being tailored towards it? Okay, so we want to make sure that if we're applying for the role of, say, a podcaster, every of your experiences is going to reflect your capacity to act as a podcaster or to deliver as a podcaster. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's not just you generally outlining all your skills, but make sure it's skills and experiences that are actually relevant, to the role that you're applying for. Another thing to do actually, which is very helpful, is have maybe a computer or a tablet or even a printed, copy of the job description and have your computer on another side. And then when you're preparing your CV, make sure you are actually having a look at the job description, just so that you are making sure you're feeding your CV with the right information. Okay, and when we get to the CV part of it, like creating a CV, I'm going to mention the fact that, we need to use keywords, especially with the fact that like AI is taking over a lot of the human research job. Okay, another thing to also be very careful about is to be consistent with your font choice. Don't use Arial here and use Times New Roman here and then use Calibri there and you use Holiday on the other one. No, it's very confusing. You're not a designer, okay? We are writing CVs. It's a very professional document, and so it's not a design. It's not a design. So also try to be truthful on your CV, even though I know a lot of us are not, but at least try to be truthful on your CV. And what is the catch here? Now, if you tell lies on your CV and then you're recruited for that role, what you then notice is that you would not be you wouldn't have the enablement to actually perform the task, because they would expect you to actually deliver, once you start. And then once they notice you're not actually able to deliver, it means you lied. And sometimes you're not even able to defend your CV during the interview process. So it's always very essential that you're truthful, when you're writing your CV. And lastly, ask someone to review your CV before you submit. I know when we prepare that document, it feels like everything is great because you've checked it over and over again, the first time, the second time, and the third time, and the fourth time. But there are some blind spots that you probably didn't take note of, and someone else might be able to spot that, without you knowing. So it's always good to have someone also vet your CV. Having said that, now let's look at the role of the automated tracking system in modern hiring. Okay, what exactly is an ATS? Like I said earlier, it's called an automated tracking system. Now, it is like a digital gatekeeper, right? And what it does is it screens CV even before they reach any human being. So once you submit your CV online, the computer processes it and determines what the human resource manager or the person who is hiring is going to view. So what you want to make sure is that you have the right, skill set and the right things fit into the CV, so that when the ATS looks at your CV, it's like, yes, I want that. Yes, we want that. Yes, we want that. Yes, we want that. Do you get what I'm saying? So you want to make sure that you're not tricking the ATS, but you're doing right by the ATS, okay? Now, how does the ATS work? First thing you have to take note is that when you see a job description, okay, there are specific keywords that are actually used in the job description. So, for example, let's say we go on LinkedIn and the role is for, let's say, a customer service officer, right? And they're like, we want somebody who is willing to help with sales and manage numbers. Now, if you see help with sales and manage numbers, what that tells me is that when I'm writing my CV, sales has to be a keyword in my CV. Numbers has to be a keyword in my CV. Otherwise, if those two things are not there, what then happens is that the computer is not going to recognize you as a qualified candidate. Even though you might have loads of experience, like 10 years experience or 12 years experience, but because you don't have the requisite keywords, it's not going to be able to decipher, because it's not exactly reading through your whole CV. What it's doing is it's searching for keywords and phrases that would actually relate to what they are looking for. Okay, so you want to try as much as possible to use the specific keywords that were used in the job description. Now, why do companies use ATS? Obviously, like if a company that you receive close to 1,000 applications, it's almost impossible for a human being, one person, to get through 1,000 applications within a short period of time. We can as well decide to actually recruit those people to get through all the applications together with us, okay? And this is why they have the ATS. Now, personally, I feel like the ATS is not exactly the greatest technology in recruiting people, and I'll tell you why. Because there are a lot of biases that go into those systems. Biases like, what is this AI? Because it's an AI. What is it trained with? So when you train an AI like that with, say, the CV of people who are Westerners or Europeans, and it's not trained on the data of Asians or Africans or people from other parts of the world, what it then does is it holds a bias against those people, even though they might have the qualification or the experience to actually do the job. So this is why I don't like the ATS, but it's a great technology either way. Now, let's look at how do you optimize your CV for the ATS. Number one, make sure you are highlighting your most relevant work experience and your achievements. Okay, so it's a case of the most recent first. Okay, so when you have your work experience, put the most recent first, not the last. Okay, and make sure that the most recent that you're putting first is the one that is also relevant to the role. And I'll show you how it works, very soon when we get to part 3. Okay, another thing to take note of is to use keywords, match the terms from the job description. Also ensure that you're properly formatting your documents. Look here, the ATS parses the document once it receives your document, so it sectionalizes them. And if you're not correctly formatting your document, it's going to mix everything together or jumble them together, okay? And then ensure that it's structurally layered, right? So keep it clean, keep it organized with bullet points and with clear sections. Now let's look at how the ATS works. Now on the screen you're going to see an image, right, that details how the ATS actually works, and I'm going to walk you through it, and I'll also show you how does the ATS work. So you're going to see that first of all, the company desires to publish a job vacancy, right? So they enter that into the ATS, okay? Now the ATS publishes this job online, right? And then the job seekers apply. Now once the job seekers apply, the ATS receives these applications, and then it passes these documents, these CVs, based on keywords, okay? And it segments them or it divides them based on probable matches and unqualified candidates. So the moment it deems you as an unqualified candidate, you have been served a breakfast, unfortunately, and you're going to get an email that reads something like this: "Hi, Akintunde. We are so delighted that you applied to our company. Unfortunately, while your skills are great, for this organization, we believe that you're not the right fit for us at the moment. We wish you all the best. Have a great time." Maybe they won't put "have a great time," but you get what I mean. It's always a very pleasant rejection. But what they are telling you is that the ATS actually rejected your application, not them. Okay? So what you want to make sure is that when we get to the whole process, I'm going to walk you through it. And after that is done, then the candidate's data are stored, okay, on the system. And then the ATS, issues out emails setting up maybe an assessment if there's one that is required, or it just schedules an interview immediately. And once an interview is scheduled, obviously they will have the interview with you. And once that is done, then it offers you the employment letter if you are picked. If not, it sends you a nice rejection letter. Okay, so that is that about how the ATS works. Now let's see an example. Okay, so on the screen you can see something showing current opportunities. Now what that does is it tells us that, like, okay, once you go on the ATS, or for an organization using the ATS, they are going to decide what job they want to put out or they want to advertise, and they enter the description and everything into the ATS. And what this ATS then does is it publishes this job to all the relevant job boards where people actually seek for jobs. Indeed, whatever platform that the organization deems fit. Okay, then you're presented with, once you click on it as a candidate, you're presented with a form to apply, right? And then you fill in all your details, and maybe if there are questionnaires to fill, you answer that as well. Once that is done, the ATS then receives all your applications. So sometimes it might be between 100 to 2,000 or even more, depending on how juicy the job is or how large the organization is. Like, Apple, for example, will probably get between 100 and 1,000 applications. Do you get what I mean? And after this is received, what it then does is it's going to have like filters where it gives a metric of like different percentages of each of the candidates. So, and it's going to tell you, okay, maybe based on this CV, this person has this experience. And that goes back to the keywords that we are talking about. If, for example, they are looking for a finance guy, if your CV doesn't have any word that has finance in it, it's going to rate you very low. And which means when a decision is to be made, it's going to pick you as an unqualified candidate. So what you want to make sure is that you are actually picking the keywords that will get you, observed or to be selected by the ATS. And once this process has been, completed, then sometimes the humans behind it, the HR or the person who is hiring, can actually review the CVs that the 8 years has actually selected, right? It's going to review, look at it. Okay, do we like the CV? Do we like what we see? And then if they're happy with it, they call you for an interview. Okay. If they are not happy with it, the ATS automatically is going to issue you with a rejection letter, all in the press of a button. All they have to do is just press a button, and then it's going to send you a rejection letter, as you can see on the screen. Okay. Then after that, the next thing you will then observe is that if you obviously are selected by the organization, it's going to send you your offer letter, and that's the end of the process. So at the end of the day, you see that all of this boils down to you understanding how the system works, not because you actually are not qualified, but it's rather because you do not understand how to get your CV past the gatekeeper. So what I'm sharing with you now is how to get your CV past the gatekeeper. So let's go to part 3 of this presentation. Obviously, if you want to have better understanding about how this works, I've put the video right on the screen, so you can have a look and go and visit that on YouTube to watch and learn more about it. Okay, so let's look at part 3. Now, this is customizing your CV for different job applications. Now, we'll look at the different sections of a CV. But first of all, the first thing we need to focus on our CV is the contact details. If you don't put the contact details, there's no way the organization can reach out to you. So we make sure that the first thing, we center align this contact page. You put it in the center, okay? Then you want to make sure that you are using a font size, say something like font 18, and it should be bold, okay? And that should just be your name. Every other thing can maintain font 12. So for example, my name is Akintunde. I'm going to have Akintunde font 18. I can use Arial, and if I'm using Arial, I'm using that all through my application, okay? And then for my LinkedIn profile, email address and every other thing, I use font 12. Okay, and you want to keep it in the center. Now, please, there's no need for you to include resume or curriculum vitae at the top of it. It's just a needless information, okay? Now, what do you include in your CV? Your name, your surname and your name, okay? I usually use my first name and my last name. Then you want to put your address. Now, you don't have to include all your address that you live at so. No, it suffices for you to put the city and the country or the state where you're based, okay? You want to include your phone number and try as much as possible to set up a professional voicemail in case you're not able to receive your phone whenever the company calls in. Another thing is to have an email address, okay? It's nice to have a very simplified email address. Then if you're applying for maybe a driver's role, try to also include your driver's, license details there. Maybe just the driver's license number. It suffices, okay? Now, if you're not from Ireland or if you're working in another company, it's good for you to also include your eligibility to work. So if you're eligible to work in the country where you're applying to, just include it that, you have the right to work there, but you also don't have to do so, they could find that out during the interview process. Now, what not to include in the contact details? Please do not include your marital status, do not include your religion, do not include anything related to your personal, like your PPS number or your health information. Is going to just create a bias against you. Okay, so you want to make sure you're as professional as possible. Okay, then the next thing we're going to look at is the career profile, which is also called an elevator pitch. So there's a code that you can actually use when you're developing your career profile, and it's the code called KEG or KEG. Okay, and it's knowledge and qualification, E for experience, and G for goal. So each time you're developing your career profile, you want to make sure that you are telling the employer or the company you're applying to what your most recent knowledge or qualification is about. You also want to tell them about what transferable skills you have gained. And lastly, you want to talk to them about what you're looking for from the employer. So that would read something like this. Let's use a student who just finished a Living Cert, Sarah, right? So Sarah, who just finished a Living Certificate, is looking for a job in customer service, but she's been working as a part-time staff at a local cafe for the past 2 years. Now, how can Sarah draft a career profile? So if I were drafting Sarah's career profile, it's going to read something like this. Recent Living Certificate graduate with 2 years of part-time customer service experience at a local cafe, demonstrated strong communication and problem-solving skills, seeking a full-time customer service role to continue developing my career in hospitality. Now, what this does is that it gives me a full information or full details of what Sarah is looking for and what as her background is. Okay, another example is Alex. Now, Alex just completed a bachelor's degree in Trinity College, Dublin. Now, Alex has been working as a tech support assistant, while he was studying in college, and he's been doing that for about 2 years. And he completed a summer internship recently at a software company. Now, if Alex were to apply to one of the leading, tech firms, say like an Apple or a Google, now this is what his career profile should probably look like. BSc in computer science, graduate from Trinity College with 2 years of tech support experience and a summer internship in software development. Proficient in coding and troubleshooting, seeking a graduate role in a leading tech firm to further hone my skills in software engineering. Now, what you would see if we break this down into 3 is, first of all, we have the background, the knowledge and the qualification. Alex is a computer science graduate, which shows that he has knowledge about computers. Number 2, we talked about having the experience, and he says he has experience, is proficient in coding and troubleshooting. I think that is something that will attract a tech organization. And then lastly, what is he seeking for? What is the goal? He says he's seeking a graduate role in a leading tech firm to further hone his skills in software engineering. Now, as you can see, there are a lot of keywords also used in this particular career profile, so you want to ensure that you're paying attention to that as well. Okay, so let's look at another segment of the CV, which is the key skills. Okay, so the key skills you should probably list should not be more than 4 or 5. Now, these skills they will probably, come across from soft skills to hard skills, like skills that you actually have, down to IT skills and a lot of things like that. And I'm going to show you, we have different banks of skills. We have soft skills, which are like people skills, like leadership, like negotiation, like delegation of responsibilities. We have analytical skills, which shows your ability to actually research, analyze data, draw, reasonable conclusions. We have technical skills. These are like your ability to use a computer, like use the Microsoft Office, use specific hardware or gadgets, right? Organizational skills, how to, organize people, project management, time management, coordination, and personal, attributes like integrity and diligence and, decision making and attention to details and all of that. Now, these are some of the skills that you can highlight, on your CV. Now, you don't have to list everything. It suffices for you to just list 4 categories. And each time you list one category, say you're listing IT skills, in front of it, you highlight the IT skills were, for example, Microsoft Office, document management or whatever, So that is, and you can see some slides on the screen as well, which can show you more details about that. And just to give you an additional information regarding your key skills, okay, we use the STAR method, STAR. Now, S is the situation. What is the situation? T, the task. What was the task that was given to you? A, action. How did you, use this? How did you apply your skill? And and R is what? The results that you gained from applying the skill. So most times when you're thinking about, even in your interviews, right, when you're answering questions, you use the STAR method. What was the situation? So when did you use this skill, right? And T, the task. Why did you use the skill? A, how did you use the skill? And the result, R, what was the result of having the skill? So these are all very helpful, just not just in your CV, but also when you're attending interviews. Another thing to take note of is your education history. Okay, so now for each education part that you're putting, ensure that you have the dates included, you have the institution, you have the course, there, and you go from the most recent down to the least recent. Okay, now if you have, say you're a master's student or you're a master's graduate, you probably don't need to include your living cert, right? Except if you have enough space, right? And try to keep your CV between 1 and 2 pages. Okay, once it's exceeding that, I would assume that you already have like 50 years experience in the job. Just joking. Okay, so an example is what you see on your screen. So for example, we have a student who has been studying from 2014 down to 2024, which is to present, and then is studying BA, Bachelor's of Arts in Film and Television Production at Griffith College, Dublin. And if we are to look at Sarah, the example of Sarah as well, we can also make a case for her that okay, let's scratch that. Let's go on. So one thing you should know, ensure you keep it consistent, and whatever arrangement you're using for the first school, use it for the second one, and you keep it that same way all through. Okay, don't mess it up. Okay, when it comes to employment, the same thing. Your work experience, the same thing. Okay, so going back to the example of Sarah, right? She studied at her school from 2018 down to 2024. She's done with her leaving cert, and she studied at St. Mary's Secondary School, Dublin. Now, Sarah can include, as part of her educational history, she can include, some of the subjects she took that are relevant to the role, right? There's no point including French if you took French in school when the role is talking about, let's say technology. Do you get what I mean? So you could add something like business, English, these are mathematics, these are relevant subjects, and you could put your grade there if you had great grades, okay? Include your key achievements there. Keep them between 2 to 3, nothing too much, okay? There as well. Now, let's look at career history. Okay, so when you're listing your career, try to follow the format you see on the screen, which is also similar to what you saw with the education. The date first, followed by the job title or the job role, and then the organization. There's no one size fits all to this, but what this does is it ensures consistency all through your CV, and try as much as possible to use the keywords like we said. Use action words like handling, like managing, assisting. So handling customer inquiries with blah 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 and all of that. Okay. Now, for the sake of time, I want to quickly rush through the rest of these things. So ensure that you give each of these things, their own heading. Okay, and I'm going to show you an example, of the CV as well. And I also put a description where you can download like a sample CV, templates that you can work off and just create something for yourself if you haven't already created a CV. You can include your interest and your achievements, right? If you're a gold medalist or you've achieved anything outside of schoolwork and stuff like that. Even if it's volunteering, even if it's sports, even if it's music, but just ensure that it kind of aligns with the job role. There's no point to including music when you're looking for a carer job, except if you can prove why it's important. So try as much as possible to keep it simple, okay? Your references, it suffices for you to say it's available on request. You don't have to provide that information. at the moment. The company would ask for it once you've gotten to that phase where you've scaled through their automated tracking system. Well, the last thing I'll just mention is cover letter. Right, your cover letter is obviously a professional document, and you want to ensure that you are selling yourself in this cover letter by, recapping some of the relevant experiences, right, that are useful for this role. And you would see, how like a draft in the video. And I really hope today's episode really helps you to understand how to curate your CV to get the kind of job you want. Now, many times when you are not getting the job or you're getting rejections, it's not because you are not brilliant. It's not because you are not employable. It's not even because you don't have the qualified experience. Sometimes it's just because you're not doing it the right way. And this is what I am hoping you got from this video. I want to say a big thank you if you have listened for the last 30 minutes, 35 minutes. You have done really well. I just want to say thank you. You're the reason why I keep showing up every time, to do this, okay? And I want to say a big thank you for the Lost Community Council for the opportunity to use, the gadgets and also like to use the studio space. Incredible support so far. I want to thank my production team, the show mixing person of Olaini, Steven, Koyin, who has been behind the camera, ensuring that I say the right things and just monitoring that the camera is still running. Samuel Ido, who has been, the social media person. So thank you so much. I really appreciate all your efforts and I hold you big time, okay? Ensure to follow us on All Things Them Podcast, okay? Both on Spotify and on YouTube and on Instagram. Please, okay? And until next time, keep striving to be the best version of yourself. My name is Akintunde, signing off. Bye-bye.